Hey everyone, this is Tyler from DPM Trading, and today I want to show you a relatively simple approach you can take to day trading the markets every day. And for simplicity's sake, we're going to call this the 3+3 method, and you're going to see why in a moment. So essentially what we're going to do here is we're going to take 3 time frames plus 3 tools. And I put tools in quotes here because the tools we're looking at are not indicators or anything like that. Well, I guess the volume profile would be considered, but what we're looking at is structure, market structure, volume profile, and supply and demand. So 3 time frames plus those 3 tools. Now you can use whatever time frames that you want for this. Personally, I trade the futures market. I trade both micro and mini ES futures, and I prefer to use tick charts. And the reason I like tick charts is because I like the continuity of price action and volatility from the extended hours session into the cash session. Whereas in time-based charts, things get a little bit funky as you make that transition. But as long as you're aware of that, you certainly can use this approach with time-based charts. You can also use this approach with a more swing trading type strategy. I'm more of a scalper, but this certainly would work with a swing trading or even a more of a position day trading type approach. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to kind of map this out, um, drawing here on my trading view, and then we're going to go over to NinjaTrader in my replay, and we're going to look at just the last 2 days. So I'm not cherry picking days here. This is today is Sunday, the 29th. So we're going to look at Thursday and Friday of just this past week, the 26th and the 27th, to describe this. So here's what we're going to do. My 3 time frames are, I'll write them down for you. These are my 3 time frames on the micro futures, the chart that I trade my cash account on, and I copy it into some mini accounts. But I use the 25,000 tick. I use we're going to do this on separate drawings here. I use the 5,000 tick, and I use the 1,000 tick. Now what you'll notice here is that, let me just get this kind of out of the way, 25,000 divided by 5 is 5,000, divided by 5 is 1,000. So that's, if you're looking for like what time frames to use, you can think of it something like that. And it'll be pretty similar with time charts. I would say what you want to look at is somewhere around probably 5 times or up to 10 or even sometimes 15 times. And the reason I say that is, for instance, um, like if my entry chart, if my main chart was like a 5 minute chart, then the next time frame up from that I'd probably be looking at would be probably the hour, and the next time frame down would be maybe the 1 minute. So it's going to be somewhere in that ballpark. Some people would do the 15 minute, the 1 minute, and the hourly. You can play around with it and see what works for you. With the tick charts, these are what works for me, and you're going to see why. It's pretty easy to figure out, what's going to work, and it doesn't have to be exact. That's the beauty of this method. So what we're looking at here is, first and foremost, we're looking at market structure. So on my 25K tick, let's just say that what we have is a series of higher highs and higher lows. So the first thing I want to do here is I want to look at, where are we at in this structure? So right now, we had the higher high here, higher low, higher high, higher low, and now we're making a higher high. So because we're in an uptrend and we're beyond the last completed high, I refer to this as being in extension. And when we're in extension, what we want to consider is that at some point, we are probably going to retrace. Okay, at some point, we're going to retrace. And so that's what we want to consider. Now, the next step is to say, if we're going to retrace, where might be a likely spot for that retracement to end and reverse to continue this uptrend? And so the first thing that we might say is, well, we have this previous high. This is the last known area that provided some resistance that might become support. Make this a little brighter. So, maybe this would be a good area. Some people would look at supply and demand levels. There might be something down here. So what I like to do is, I'll definitely mark this last known high because that's very common. You can definitely often see price come back down, hit that, and then continue. But what I like to also do here is, this is where I'd use my volume profile. So what I would do is I'm going to draw my profile over, anything that I see that's significant in here. Now, the first thing that I'm always going to mark as significant is the last ABC or 1, 2, 3 pattern. I call it a zigzag, right? So you just have this 1, 2, 3. So my profile, I can't actually use a profile tool on this, but my profile would go from, okay, so my profile would go from here, and then it would go up to here. Okay, so I'd start here with my profile drawing tool and I draw it up to here. And what you're often going to see in there, what I'm looking at is some confirmation. So usually what you'll see is you've got your volume, some stuff going on, and somewhere in here, you're going to have a very significant high volume node and a POC. Okay, so that's going to be an area that I would say, hey, price might come back down to that, and that would be a good area to look for reversal. So I'm looking at, this as a possibility, but also the volume as a possibility, and a lot of times those two things can line up. And so in this context, I'm expecting a pullback, and I'm going to say, where do I expect it to go? And a lot of times, like I said, it's going to be some combination of structure and profile, volume profile, and I'm going to find that area. We're going to see this on some live charts in a second, okay? Now, once I do that, let's just say that I've now got this area, and let's just say it's right in here, that I say, hey, I think this is my area where I expect price to come back and do something like this, okay? So as price is approaching, all right, as price is heading down into this, we're going to go to our next time frame chart. And on the 5K tick, what we might see is that price is coming down and it's making lower highs and lower lows. And then as it gets into that area, we're going to be looking for structure to change. So I want to look for this high right here, this last swing high, this last lower high to get broken. Once that happens, okay, once that happens, what I'm going to tend to look for is my first entry. This middle chart is sort of my setup chart. Like, this is where I look for my trading setup on. I'm going to look for the first supply and demand entry. Now, I'm not going to review supply and demand here. There's 1,000,001 videos on YouTube about supply and demand. It's not that complicated. But let's presume that there's a demand zone in here. So once we've broken this structure, and again, what I want you to consider is that this whole thing, at least part of it has touched this larger zone. So let's say like the larger zone is down here, okay? Like this zone equals that zone. I'll make this a different color, okay? So we're zooming in, we get a break of structure, and then I'm gonna look for my first supply or demand setup. Now, once I have that, and then I see price coming back down into this, okay, coming down into that, then I'm going to go to my 1,000 tick, and what I'm going to do is look for the first break of structure once we enter that zone. So now, this is just where I'm going for precise entries. So as price is coming, making this last leg down, that's going to again look like lower highs and lower lows. And all we're looking for here is some sort of, a lot of times you get like a double bottom or a little like weak break, and then a push up, breaking this last point of structure. Okay, breaking that last point. Now, sometimes you'll get like, within here, it'll do something like this. And the reason I want to point this out is I'm looking for this structure break. This was the last major swing point, not this one here, because this one didn't lead to a significant low, right? But this one right here, whoops. So this structure point right here, once that gets broken, that's my entry. I'll actually usually just have a stop order right above that. And the reason I want to point this little scenario that could happen out is because when I do this, I usually don't put my stop under this little low here. I put it under the low from, what's going to be the low on that 5K tick chart. And then target, you can do a number of ways. Like a lot of times I'll scalp a 1-to-1 and then consider leaving a runner. But if we're going to leave a runner, we're going to go back to this 25K tick chart. If we're in an uptrend, we're expecting this high up here to at least get tested before the trend would reverse. So somewhere up here would be where I put my final target. Okay, but that would be the entry. And all of this, right, I need some part of this pattern to touch. And this pattern is the same as that. We're just magnifying in, okay? So we're just looking for a break of structure once we go into that supply. So we say, what are we expecting on the 25K tick? We're coming into this retracement zone. We look for a reversal pattern, right? A break of structure. And then once we get that break of structure, we're going to look for the first entry setup that we get. The middle chart, which in my case is the 5K tick chart, is going to be the chart that we look for our setup on. And so usually I'm looking for a supply and demand setup. I do have one other main setup that I trade. I have another video on it. It's called a momentum continuation setup. I will put a link to that video. But for now, let's focus on the supply and demand. And so I look for the setup on the supply and demand, and then I want to see the break of structure on the lower time frame chart. Now, a lot of people would just go on this middle chart, supply and demand, and then they'd go for like a candle break. I like to go for the break of structure on the lower time frame chart. Very often, the candle break on the 5K tick and the break of structure on the 1000 tick are going to be the same, but sometimes they're not. And sometimes the candle break on the 5K tick is really a very arbitrary entry if you were to zoom in a little bit lower. So I want that entry to have significance. I want to see a break of structure because that's a sign that the buyers in this case are coming in. And again, the stop under the lowest point on that 1K tick, which would be the swing low on the 5K tick as well. Okay, so now that we've got that mapped out, we're going to go over to NinjaTrader and we're going to take a look at this on some replay and see how this actually played out, because of course it doesn't always look this perfect. Okay, so I've got my market replay queued up to just before the cash open on the morning of Thursday, January 26th, 2023. So this is just 2 days ago. And this is my 25K tick chart. I've got the charts labeled here to make it a bit easier as we're switching back and forth so you can follow along. So a couple things we want to take note of. If we really zoom out a bit, we can see that, we're definitely in an uptrend on this larger sort of picture. And so in one sense, we've got a very clear, very large sort of swings, but also here we've got this low, this higher high, higher low, and now we just are barely pushing up to a higher high. Okay, now when I was trading this morning and I'm seeing that we're just barely up to this higher high, I'm thinking, this might still go higher. We had some potential targets up above. That's the subject of a totally different video. I want to keep on task here, but this could go higher, but I said, we might also get a pullback first. And the reason that I was saying that is because if we look at and zoom in on just this most recent impulse, I mean, this thing has really moved with almost no real retracement. I mean, this was a strong impulse. So I'm kind of thinking like, yeah, this might continue up, but we might get a bit of a pullback first. Okay. Now, of this zigzag, there's a couple things. We've got, this is the last known high, right? So we can pop a little line in there. And I might do it something like this because, kind of see like that was really the more significant drop off came. Now that wouldn't really be much of a retracement for me. When you've got this kind of a huge impulse, that's not really much of a retracement for me. So I'm probably not super interested in going long on just that, unless we were to push up higher first. So what I'm going to do next is go to my volume profile tool. And like I said, I'm going to look at the last sort of low, high, low, high. It's our 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's our zigzag pattern. I'm going to grab my profile tool. I'm going to draw it over this whole thing. And what do I get? I get a point of control at 40.29.50. Okay, so I'm going to drop a line in there. 40.29.50, and I like to make my lines a little bit color coded here. Okay, so that's really significant. And when I see this kind of congestion and sideways movement, sometimes I'll just, because this is a significant sort of chunk of price action, I just want to see, just the point of control there is 33, so a little bit higher. But the other thing that I want to do is, because again, we had this super strong impulse, just here, 40.29. So I know somewhere in this like 29 to 30 area, to 33 area, like that's where we're going to be very interested, right? Somewhere in there is going to be where we're going to be very interested in trading when we go down to our smaller time frame. Okay, that's a very prominent, look how prominent that point of control is compared to everything else. And especially when we consider the confluence between this whole section of congestion and then also just this impulse, and they both had their point of control right there. So that to me is telling me that if we pull back, that's an area that I'm very interested in. Now, if I don't see that reversal pattern there, I may have some other areas below that I'm also interested in. So for instance, I might be looking at some of these swing lows. I might have some other support and resistance levels drawn, but that to me is very clear, okay? So when we go down now to our 5,000 tick chart, okay, this is that area that we just drew. And you can see on this chart, there's nothing like terribly significant. You do have a little bit of congestion around this area, a little bit of support showing, but it's nothing too crazy significant on this chart. But on that 25K tick chart, that area really stood out to us. So I'm going to remove this line. And now we're going to fast forward. I'm going to go at a relatively fast speed here. You can see we push up a little bit to start the session. Okay, so you can see now we've come into this zone. All right, we've come into this area that I'm looking at for a possible reversal. Now, don't get me wrong, as a scalper, there's lots of other stuff to take advantage of in here. But if you're looking for some of those bigger trades or to leave a runner, we really want to wait for these kinds of areas of interest. So let's see now if we get that break of structure and then our first supply and demand setup. So at this point, we've got this sort of double bottom. So this is the structure point that I'm looking to break before considering an entry. Okay, so we've got a slight break here. Now, you could, at this point, if you want to, depending on how aggressive you want to be, you could look at entry right here, okay? And there are two potential entries here that we are going to take a look at. So let's start with this one. So we've got this pullback into here. Now we're going to go down to the 1K tick chart. So this one for clarity is the 5K tick. And then this here is our 1K tick chart. The indicator at the bottom is the cumulative delta. We're not going to worry about that at the moment. So this was the demand zone identified on that 5K tick. This isn't a really ideal setup to me, just because the break of structure was not very strong, but let's just consider it anyhow. So as we come into this, and maybe I'll slow this down just a little, what we're going to look for again is our first break of structure coming into that demand zone. Okay, so now we've touched the demand zone. Let me put a chart trader on here, and we'll just go with a quick one-to-one because I've played this day back before, and I know there's going to be another opportunity coming that I'll show you. I'll show you leaving a runner on the next one. But if I were going to be looking at this, we've now touched the zone. So I'm going to look at entering on the first break of structure, which is going to be here. So I'm going to do a buy order right there. The high of this candle is 45, so my order is at 45.25. And I like to use this measurement tool because my first target is generally a one-to-one. Okay, so that went lower, which is fine. So now I want to consider, do I consider this enough of a structure point that I would move my entry down? Sure, why not? On this low time frame, absolutely. So I'm going to make that adjustment. I had to pause the video because I have this playing at 30x speed. I might not be able to do this fast enough, but in real time that would be no problem. Okay, so now we're in. Let me just pause one more time to move my stops and targets. So what I want you to see here is the stop, right under that low. If we go back to the 5,000 tick, you can see the stop is right under the low of that candle. And you can see the entry really was a candle break on this chart, but it doesn't always work out that way. Again, I don't personally love this setup, but we'll let it play out. Back to the 1K tick. I like to monitor my trades on the smaller time frame personally. And we can see off that went. So really nice. And again, if you do more than one contract, you can consider taking a runner. On my next one, I'll show you how it looks with a runner. Okay. But what I want to point out now is now on this 5K tick. So we've come into our zone from the 25,000 tick. Now we've got a much cleaner break of this structure and these nice strong bull bars with some good fair value gaps on them. So this to me is actually a much better setup because not only do I have that, but notice the top of now this new demand area also lines up with this structure point, this swing high from right here on this chart. This one right here, okay? So a retest of this high would also bring us into this demand zone. So that makes this trade much more interesting to me, much more interesting, much higher conviction. So now all we do is wait for price to come into that zone and at least touch it. Oh, the other cool thing I want to show you here is you can actually do this also with the volume profile. Here, look. So for this first entry, if we did low, high, low, high, right? That 1, 2, 3. And then we took our profile tool right over it. Notice the POC, you can barely see it on this because it's really zoomed in, but that's this pink mark right here, right? Look how that gave us that nice precise kind of looking for price to touch that point. And then same deal, okay, to adjust this a little bit, but low, high, low, high. Okay, this is our new ABC pattern. Take our profile, draw it over that, and look how the point of control is right inside of that demand zone. So that gives us added confluence now. We have this resistance hopefully turning to support, we have a demand zone, and we have the volume cluster and POC inside of that demand zone, okay? So we've got structure, supply and demand, and profile all showing us confluence on the higher time frame, the middle time frame, and then we're going to go down to the low time frame. So we'll actually go down to this low one now. And again, what we're waiting for here is price to come into this demand area. We can even draw that profile over here if we want to. You can see where that is. But another nice push up. A 5K tick. This is still our demand area. This is still what we're looking for. I love that it lines up with this break of structure here where this oval is. That gives me a lot of confidence. I love the strength of the buying. Whoops. Just extended this out here. And now we're just waiting for price. This is the 1K tick chart, smallest time frame, to come into this area and give us a break of structure. Okay. Let's just adjust this so we can see what we're doing here. So now you can see. Let's go back to the 5K tick. You can see that we now came into this demand area, just wicking it and touching this structure point. So now, again, we're just going to look for where is a break of structure on this 1K tick chart. Now at this point, like this is probably a little bit high for me to enter. Okay, as we start to get this kind of swing high here, this is where I might start to look for an entry as we're pushing up here. I maybe would have tried to enter here. I'm not sure in real time, but I think at this point what I'm going to do is put my entry right above here. So we've got this little pullback, this structure point. But again, this is going to be a big stop. My stop's going to be back there, okay? And this is why I like to wait for the structure break, because imagine if I just entered like the break of this candle. You know, this would have moved a little bit, and then I'm starting to sweat bullets as we're coming back down because we just didn't really get that break of structure on the lower time frame. At this point, I'm going to actually bring this entry down to here. Now we're getting a double bottom in this zone, which is also really nice. Get another push down. So at this point, I'm even happy entering here. So you can see I'm getting a cleaner entry at this point. And I didn't have to sit out all this chop by waiting for this break of structure on the small time frame. We even tapped deeper into this, which actually tapped. So what I want to show you here, this tap here, if we were to extend this line where we kind of drew our structure, the first touch into this demand zone didn't get down to that structure point. See, this one missed it by a tick. If you zoom in, see we missed it by a tick. This one actually touched it. So it gives me even a better sense of the entry. So what am I going to do? I'm going to put my first stop right under there. We're going to go for a 1-to-1 on the first target. And then with the runner, remember I said we're going to go right up towards the last swing high. So I'm going to keep it right where it is, actually. I like that right there. And so at this point, we're just going to basically see how this plays out. We'll watch it on the 5K tick. So there's target 1. Now it's up to you if you want to move your stop to break even. Personally, I like to move my stop under structure points. Sometimes I'll move it under the break even, like just on that low time frame structure. But once we start really moving, I'm not I'm gonna probably watch more structure on this time frame. I don't actually know if this will take out the stop or not. So at this point, I'm probably would be considering bringing my stop there. The reason I like to watch on the 5K tick is because you can see if we go down to this 1,000 tick and I were trailing it, I might have been trailing it up here or up here, and I would have gotten taken out at this point. When I'm going for that bigger target, I don't want to get too crazy about aggressively adjusting my stop. You know what I mean? And maybe I get taken out anyway. I honestly don't know. I don't remember exactly how this plays. Now, at this point, being so close to the target, I might have grabbed that in real time if I saw price stalling. Or as we got that close, maybe I'm trailing under some of these things because I don't want to get that close and then give back all my profits. That's kind of frustrating. Let's just watch it go. Got within, just a few ticks. There we go. Okay, so we got that upper target. So that was a really easy, we got two nice entries off that, and both of them, we could have left those runners and gone all the way to the top. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next day. And again, I'm going to just get us queued up to the open. This is the 26th. We're going to go to the 27th and see some things that happen there. Okay, so here we are on the 25,000 tick chart. This is the very next day. So this area right here, this is what we just were looking at yesterday, was this push up, and then we got this pullback up to the new high. And it was right in here that we were taking our trades based off of the volume from this area. Okay, so this is done. And now what we're looking at is where are we at currently? So I queued this up to about 10 a.m. on this day because this is where things got kind of interesting. So if we look at this, we had this low, we broke to a new high, small pullback, new high. Okay, so this is the area that we are looking at. Small pullback, new high. That's our 1, 2, 3 pattern. Okay, now what do we want to think about here on this time frame? Well, the first thing that we can do is we can take our profile tool and we can draw our 1, 2, 3 profile and say, where's our volume? Okay, so right here we see that our volume is at 65. So we're going to draw a line in there. So 65 is where that volume is from this 1, 2, 3 pattern. Now, what I also really love about this is that we see that it also lines up with this other major swing point here. Okay, so we have confluence. We have confluence with this major swing point right at that level, and that gives me added conviction. Okay, a lot of added conviction because we have volume and support and resistance lining up together. Okay, again, this is the last sort of minor swing point here as well. This would not be enough of a pullback for me based on the current price action. I would need this to go much higher for me to want to enter here. It's just not enough of a retracement. Okay, another thing that sometimes I'll look at for confluence, just to kind of throw this in here, is this last impulse here, this from the 2 to the 3. If we were to draw a Fibonacci over that, all I really want to see is, is my area of interest, this blue line here is the 50% retracement. Are we below that? Like, are we in, of that last range movement, are we in what we would consider to be discounted price, below that 50% point? And we certainly are. See, this high up here is not at all. It's still very much buying very high at a premium. So I really like on this 25,000 tick, we've got our structure telling us we're in an uptrend. we've got our volume profile giving us this area of interest, and it aligns with also a major structure point on this 25,000 tick. So now I know this is definitely where I'm looking at for trades, okay? We're in an extension. We're above the last swing high. So remember, once I'm in an extension, at that point, I really want to wait for pullbacks. Every now and then I'll try to scalp continuation up here, but it gets riskier and riskier the further into that extension you go. So now, from here, okay, keep your mind on this chart. We're going to go down to the 5,000 tick, okay? And we see that this was a very tight overnight range on this day. We really consolidated, which is probably part of how we built up all that volume. We can also see that we have some like what looks very much like demand in here. You've got this sort of zone here, but it's very messy. Like I wouldn't necessarily go off this low. Like I might have to make this down to that low, really. So I also have that little bit of confluence there, okay? So now we can see we're starting to push down. I'm looking at this retracement and I'm saying, where do I think it might go to? And based on my 25,000 tick chart, I have this area of interest, okay? Just move this so you guys can know what chart size we are currently looking at. Okay, so now we wait. So let's just, again, after that big move, let's adjust here. Even with this adjustment, okay, we want to make sure, does our volume still make sense? Yes. So we've been pushing up, we've built little volume clusters, but nothing compared to this massive volume cluster here at 4065. So this is still really our area of interest. And we did probe down here, we did kind of test that swing high. Okay, so as a reminder, okay, we've got our 25,000 tick chart, we have identified our area of interest. We're expecting on the 5,000 tick chart that approaching into that area of interest, we are probably making lower lows and lower highs. So the first thing we're doing is we're waiting for price to enter the larger area of interest and to show us a break and shift of structure towards the upside. That's the first thing we're going to look for. Okay, so here we are, and you can see at this point we have low, lower high, little lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, and we are into the zones. We have everything that we expect to happen. So we just need to wait for structure to break and shift to the upside, and then look for our first setup. Okay, so let me redraw this really quick. So I'm going to, full disclosure here, guys, I traded this day. I'm going to show you, I took a little bit of a more aggressive entry initially, and I got stopped out. And so it's a good reminder, like not to get too aggressive. So what I was looking at here was we made this low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. Okay, now I got stopped out on my first attempt at this, but I'll show you I did re-enter, and the second entry was really what I should have been waiting for. Okay, so we have this high here, and if we go down to the 1K tick, I'm going to show you exactly what I did. Again, full disclosure. So I'm thinking, you know, this swing high, swing low, swing high, low. I should have really waited to kind of see this break first and make sure it was kind of convincing and then looked for entry. But I didn't. So what I did was I took an entry. I said, hey, if this breaks here, I want to get in. I was just a little bit eager. I had a little bit of FOMO going on. So I put an entry here. Okay, this is the 1,000 tick chart. This is the 5,000 tick chart. So you can see, I'll get rid of this line here. Okay, you can see we hadn't yet broken any structure, so I didn't really follow my rules here. Okay, and I paid for it. So as we play price forward, see I got in, I had my stop. You know, so the problem was if I put my stop here, I probably would have been okay. I didn't. Again, I was being a little bit aggressive. I put my stop here, you know, again, which is not what I tell you guys to do, you know, so just didn't follow the plan, right? Put my stop under that low. Um, and you can see what happens here. I'll show you. Anyway, it's just kind of silly, the whole thing. So really, after this break, I should have been now looking for entries on the next break of structure to the upside, the next one, okay? Now, you see I got stopped there. Now, here's something that I want to point out. Technically, after we broke this structure here, so again, we had this, you know, coming down. We now broke the structure here, okay? So this really looks like an inverse head and shoulders. So really, this is my demand zone that I should be looking for entry. And you can see we dipped below that, but I'll show you why I decided to re-enter is because I don't know why the line's not showing up on this chart. It should be, but this pink line again, right at 65, that was that point of control from this 25K tick chart. So you're right at 65 is the point of control. And what I saw here is as we came back down, again, we had broken structure, so signs that the buyers are coming in. We came right to this 65 point, right there, and then started to show some strength again. So at this point, this is no longer valid. And at this point, I actually was originally like, you know what, if we come back up here, I'm getting back in, okay? I had an order right there. And then as price continued to develop, we made this new little swing here. And then I said, you know what, if we don't take out this low again, if we hold above that and break this, that break of structure, I'm getting in. Because again, this is a major area of interest for me. So this is not a perfectly clean setup, right? But that's the market. It's not always going to look perfect. So this is where experience and discretion comes in. This is why it's so hard to train mechanically or algorithmically, trade mechanically or algorithmically. So let's just watch this. Okay, so there we go, I'm in. Stop goes under the low on the 5K tick, which is going to be right here. Okay, this is the 5K tick. That's the low, not this little wick here. Personally, you can do this however you want. My first target is 1-to-1. Second target, we go back to our 25K tick. Where was that last high? It's right there. Okay, now sometimes I just go right to the bodies. I try not to be greedy, you know, but let's put it right there. Let's see what happens. Okay, so that gives us really nice risk reward. Let's let this play. Now, once I'm in, I will look to at least move this stop based on some sign of structure here on the small time frame, but usually only till I get it right around break even or at least reduce some risk. And what I like about this level for my stop is I've got these two lows here. So it's a very micro structure. Like I don't love that by itself, but we have this area of support and resistance as well. So I figured my position's pretty well protected there. Okay. So at this point, I'm not micromanaging on that tiny time frame anymore. Only till I get my first target do I watch that small time frame, and then I'll speed this up a bit. Now, one thing I want to point out here is, let's say you didn't get you didn't catch this small structure, because this is pretty tight structure breakdown here. And let's say you weren't in this trade already. Okay, we're still expecting price to deliver up to this high and take it out, really. So if we get any other good supply and demand setups in here, we would definitely consider taking them. And I do see this area in here of little congestion. We kind of tested it on this wick, but that's a little area that I could look at for entering if I was not already in this trade. Okay, so we came down into this. Let's just see if we were not already in this trade. Let's see if we get a break of structure. Now, I don't know if I would have wanted to enter off this high. Let's see if we get something better to enter off of. Yeah, that's a little bit better. So if I weren't already in the trade, maybe I would enter another position here. And you know what, let me just I'll do a single contract on this one. Whoops. Since I already have my runner set. So again, just waiting for a break of structure. You can go a little bit lower now. Great. Now again, we go under. This is the 1K tick for the entry. The demand area was on the 5K tick chart right here. So my stop was under that low. All right, not this low right here, because sometimes those will get the wick. You'll come back down. I want it to be a little bit more protected than that. And you know, about a 1-to-1. Let's see, where was my entry? So my 1-to-1 on this would be right there on this position. Great. Let's see what happens there. And if I didn't already have a runner, I would consider putting a runner on that. Ooh, look at that, right to it. Didn't fill. That's okay. And now what do I have again? Again, we're still expecting delivery up to this high. We haven't yet hit it. Again, so you're getting more and more extended here, so things are getting dicier, but we do have another demand zone there, so let's just see what happens. So we filled that one. Still got my runner from the first entry. Okay, we're now into this next demand area. What do? We wait for a break of structure on the 1K tick. Let's see what we get. Now, again, maybe I take that. I don't know if I do, personally. That's a very aggressive entry, very aggressive. I'm in profit. Let's see what happens if I were to take a break there. Okay, so I'm in that. What I'm going to do is just move the one stop because I don't feel super confident about that entry. So I'm just going to move the stop from that new position. I'm going to keep my other runner stop down there. And let's adjust the target as well. So again, it's going to be about a 1-to-1. My entry was here, stop there. This is 1-to-1 on that position. There we go. And then we still have our original runner. This is the 5K tick chart set to this high. And there we go. That's the whole position. So this is micros, and just on that run up there, taking those trades, 148.75. So on micros, that is about 30 points that we got combining all those positions together by simply following this pattern. Look on the high time frame, say what is the trend? Are we in an extension? If so, let's wait for that pullback. Let's find an area of interest relying on both structure and volume profile to identify our area of interest for that pullback to stop. Let's not just blindly enter the market there. Let's wait for structure to break on the next time frame lower. And then once we get that, find a setup on that time frame and just refine the entry based on the break of structure on the micro time frame, the one time frame lower than that. You can set up your targets however you want to. Stop would go under the most recent swing low on the middle time frame. I like to go for 1-to-1 on my first target. Your runner, you target the continuation of the trend from that largest time frame to give yourself some nice risk reward. It's a very straightforward strategy. Plays out again and again. Does it always win? No, it does not. But you can see that when it does, it plays out very nicely, and you can get some really good trades. If you like this video, please subscribe, hit that like button, drop a comment. All of that helps us. You can visit our website, dpmtrades.com, for access to our Discord room. A very nice Discord room. It's a very nice community. We also have some NinjaTrader tools on there, as well as discount codes for some of the software platforms that we use, as well as discount codes for Apex Trader Funding, which is the trader funding that I recommend. And the code we have on the website will always give you the most recent and best discount available. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch up with you in the next video.